All right, guys, welcome back. The madness is finally here. Selection Sunday, just a few hours away, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. Sunday, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, CBS. The brackets finally come out. We will know who, at large wise, who's going where, what regions, how dominant will the SEC be in this tournament? Do they get 10, 11, 12? What mid-majors could be threats? There's going to be lots and lots of controversy about who gets in. Does a team like North Carolina get in this week because of the name on the front of their jersey as opposed to their resume? All these questions need to be answered. No better person to answer it than a guy who was in the tournament. How many times, Bart Hyche, were you in the tournament?
It was only one, but I definitely
An
got to
important
watch the
one,
tournament and
though.
not get in. Hey, my freshman year when I wasn't playing a lot, we got in the tournament. So I don't know what that says afterwards.
Well,
But yeah, been studying it for years, played in it. And it's just a special time of year, Powers. You know that.
this guy, Bart Hyche, played for the 96 Mississippi State team. Yes, that 96 team that went to the Final Four, part of that Final Four team. Eric Dampier, Bart Hyche and company, all the way to the Final Four. This guy does home games for the University of South Alabama. He's a home analyst. He just got done doing the Alabama State High School Championships. He's a member of our team at Pressbox Radio. Mr. Bart Hyche, welcome back to the podcast, sir.
Man, hey, look, I just have watched. I mean, you're a pro referee now. I mean, like exquisite kicker, trainer extraordinaire. I mean, dude,
Yeah,
what are you not a podcast in basketball, football? What are you not doing, Jason
I'm
Powers?
trying to be like you, man. You're the man that's got all the connections. This guy is dialed in around the South, boys and girls. This guy knows a lot of people in the SEC in and around Mississippi. This guy's a golf legend in the state of Mississippi on the country club circuit. He even hung out with Darius Rucker back in the day, back in the football season in South Carolina.
He's
All
bringing
right,
you. You're bringing them all out, dog.
I hear you. I hear. All right, take me back to your freshman year. Were
Mm-hmm.
you guys at all even close to the bubble? Or were you pretty much you knew you were in just no matter what seed?
Yeah, we were in. I tell folks all the time we lost 4 out of 5 in January and late January, early February that year. And I was 18 years old. And I tell like kids, coaches, people all the time, like we'd always played in the state tournament. So it was just the next game for me. It was just the next run. Like I was used to always going and playing for championships. And when you got to college, that mindset doesn't change. But it was difficult. I mean, like going through the rigors of like what an SEC season is, and even back then it was really tough, but obviously not anything like it is like this year. But we went to there was a snowstorm. We went to Auburn, and Dante Jones had 24 and 12, and just kind of emerged as that guy. All these teams have got to find an unguardable guy. That's like that. That's somebody's got to emerge. Like you got pros in these games, in these different runs, and we had Eric Dampier, who was a first round pick. We had Dante Jones, who emerged and was a first round pick, and then you got Darrell Wilson, who could have played in the league. Marcus Bullard, Russell Walters. So like we knew we were good, but we started beating teams. We went to Oklahoma and won. Ryan Miner, and that game I think also during part of our run after that 4 out of 5 got us going. But you got to peak at the right time, Powers, and you know this in any sport, but basketball especially, and get hot. And there's a lot of teams we've watched be good all year that have they peaked too early. What's the injury situation?
Yeah.
How's the mental aspect of? I'm speaking of Auburn. They've been the best team all year,
Yeah.
but like Coach Williams used to always say this, Powers. It's not a light switch. You can't just turn it on and turn it off. And can these elite teams that we haven't seen play well, have injuries, Auburn, Iowa State, different teams like emerge and make a run, kind of like we did. But like we felt like nobody was going to beat us. We beat a team with 7 first round picks, Powers,
At
the
what point in that
Untouchables.
tournament did you guys know, look out here, we got a chance? After the second round?
Well, I think ours was in the SEC tournament
Okay.
because we actually played Auburn, and that's back when the SEC was East and West, and we had to beat Auburn to clinch the West at 10-6 to win a Western Division championship. And Kentucky had just run through all year, obviously not been beaten by anybody. We played Auburn first round. We turned around and played a Sweet 16 team, Georgia, who was really good, who almost beat Syracuse, who we ended up losing to. And then we had to face Kentucky in the SEC tournament final with 7 first round picks. And I can honestly tell you, there was nobody in that locker room before that game. after Darrell Wilson spoke. He was our captain, one of our captains with Jay Walton. We knew we were going to win. It was like our locker room got so tight, man. Like we were so connected, but we kind of played with the chip on our shoulder. We weren't the favorite, but we knew we were in. And I still tell people all the time, after we won the SEC tournament, the coolest thing experienced maybe in my entire basketball career, other than being on One Shining Moment, which I'll shout myself out on that. That was really cool for me.
With some hair, by the way.
With a lot of hair and cheerleaders around me. But the coolest thing was after we won the SEC tournament in the Superdome, watching the selection show in the Superdome, knowing that you're in,
Oh, yeah.
knowing that it's just what your seed's going to be, knowing it's just going to where you're going to go. And I think it's unique this year, for a lot of teams, like especially in the SEC, that you're already in. Usually you're trying to play yourself in. But it was just, man, it was a special time. And my daddy always said, my late father said, when that Final Four comes up, son, you're always going to be known as that. And he was right. And it's the only thing in sports that you can get to and finish the fourth best and be recognized for.
That's it. Let's go to the SEC strength. You mentioned that. Obviously a historic year in this conference. They've never had a year where this many teams have been this good. I mean, you can make an argument for 12, 13 teams. In your view, what has been the percolation the last 4 or 5 years of this league to allow it to have this kind of year?
I think it started maybe before that, probably 7 or 8 years ago. Greg Sankey made a decision that and I know some people in the SEC office pretty well, went to school with a couple of them at Mississippi State. And it was a focus that like the SEC saw an opportunity. But if you're going to, I guess, exploit an opportunity that you see, you got to put the right people in the right places. And so the SEC, with all that football money, decided to start going after some big time SEC coaches, and AD started deciding that, hey, basketball is gettable. And then obviously we didn't know what the NIL was going to do.
Right.
And then the money with the SEC, and you see all these ACC players, all these Big 10 teams, all these Big 12 teams. The reason SEC is good because all these players are playing in the SEC, bro.
Right.
I mean, like, think about Cam at LSU. Right. I mean, that's a dude. Cam Carter was elite at Kansas State. Well, all of a sudden he comes to LSU. Hogard at Vandy. Right. Might not have the greatest year, but I mean, Vandy's relevant, and keep an eye on them in the SEC tournament. But I think the commitment, one, to going and finding the coaches, but number two, the facilities. If you walk around the country and go around the country, other than maybe a couple of arenas in the SEC, Alabama needs to build a new arena, by the way, but the practice facilities are unbelievable. Like if you go to Missouri, if you go to Mississippi State, if you go to just different places that you don't think about being known as basketball, the commitment to facilities through the SEC football money, in my opinion, and the commitment to finding coaches that like had won, the Rick Barneses, of the world, the Chris Beards of the world right now that are just in here for 1 year, right? The up and coming Chris Janses, but pedigrees, Bruce Pearls, finding the NATO. I mean, the coaches bring the winning and the players and the program to a status that we've seen in the SEC. But I think you got to give Greg Sankey, call him coach, Greg Sankey, just a lot of credit for seeing a vision that I think was kind of ahead of everybody else.
To talk about what state you grew up in, Alabama. Basketball was an afterthought when you were growing up there. I mean, it was football 365 every day of the week. And okay, God bless, if we're happen to be in the top 25 once in a blue moon, great. How that state has turned, where Alabama, Auburn, 2 top 5 matchups this year. Both teams. Auburn's been one all year. Alabama's been in the top 5 or 6 all year. Just talk about just places like that where basketball was an afterthought, and now it is front and center.
I played 4 sports in high school. I grew up in a small town to where that's what you did. You didn't have a lot of choice to play. I've always told people that basketball was actually my it was probably my passion, but it was my least favorite because it was hard because I was little. In high school, I wasn't little. Like football, it's always been football, man. I went to 169 straight Auburn football games, Jason Powers, with my father. He took me literally, I didn't miss one. Home or away till I was in 8th grade and started playing varsity football.
Wow.
And where I'm from, the whole reason that I didn't go try to play baseball and pursue a pro career, possibly college career, I thought I was that good. I mean, people say I was much better than that. Football, people say I was much better than that, but basketball was the one in the state of Alabama that people told me I could never go do it. I could never go play in the SEC. I could never go because basketball was an afterthought, right? And then I think through the course of just watching basketball grow, the SEC growth, it's been just collective fundamentals in the state of Alabama. Like doing these we have the best high school state tournament in the country. I challenge anyone to find a better one than what we do with the boys and girls. It's been going on for 25 years. The first year of it was like one of the years that I played in it. And now basketball, the high school level, Hoover, top 5 team in the country, won 3 state championships, and it then trickles up. Ace Austin, most storied player we've ever seen in Alabama, in 1A girls basketball, going to Alabama, all the way up those levels. But then you start getting to North Alabama that just played Lipscomb for a championship after going through D1 after 7 years transition. Troy wins the conference. South Alabama was leading won the conference in the regular season. What Bucky McMillan's done at Sanford the last couple of years, what Andy Kennedy continues to do. Alabama State was leading the SWAC for the course of the year. What UAH does, and this is not a coincidence that basketball over the last, like to your point, 5 to 7 years has exploded in the state of Alabama, and it's not going to stop. Like there's so many plans with the high school, but it trickles down. 1A girls basketball, Powers, all basketball people across the United States, hear me on this. 1A girls basketball, or whatever your lowest level is, up to the highest level of men's basketball and highest level of women's basketball, it all matters. Final Fours matter. When we went to the Final Four, Powers, Ole Miss turned around and won the West the next 2 years. And then you saw about 5 or 6 pros come out of high school. Guys like Travis Outlaw, guys like Monta Ellis, guys like Al Jefferson. All of that came after the Mississippi State Final Four run about 4 or 5 years later. Right. Now you're starting to see Auburn go, Alabama go. You got all of these basketball. Dwayne Brown's the best big we've seen in this state. He's going to Tennessee since DeMarcus Cousins. But people are starting to pay attention. And so thank you for acknowledging the fact that, like, we ain't just no football state, Powers. I know you played football in this state.
How much pressure's on the SEC to win some games in this tournament? I mean, you don't want to have, the middle class of the SEC teams like 4 through 9 or 10, 11 go out in the first or second round. How important is it to have 5, 6 teams in the Sweet 16?
Well, I think it's going to be a mind trick on people because, like, you're going to see the SEC lose 5 or 6 games and still have 5 or 6 teams in. Yeah. So, like, I mean, like, you literally could see 6 or 7 SEC teams lose on the first day and have 5 Elite 8 teams. Right. So, like, I think the view of how the SEC is going to be is, I like Ole Miss, and I know people think, I mean, like, and I'm the Mississippi State guy, but, like, I like the way they're built. I love the way Florida's built. I think Florida's the best team in the country. I've said it for 6 weeks. I think Auburn's got internal issues that you can't, like we said, just flip a light switch. I think Alabama can beat anybody. I think Tennessee finally can score the basketball. And, like, maybe this is Rick Barnes' year. Not a huge fan, but, like, you got to give credit where credit's due.
Got a good
Arkansas
team.
Getting in a bracket somewhere. If Oklahoma's got to win tonight, though. If Oklahoma don't win, I don't think they're in. Other than that, I mean, I don't think does anybody really want to face a Mississippi State as what I think is going to be a 10 seed? Right. I don't think State has played well enough to be an 8 or 9 seed. But if you slip to that 10 line, the Georgias, the Mississippi States,
the
Vandies of the world, who I love in this tournament, I just think you're going to see those teams. 1 or 2 of those will sneak around that Sweet 16. Powers, you know this as well as I do, bro. It's based on matchups. We can talk about how good we think this team's going to do with that team, but who gets that matchup? Does Alabama get a matchup against teams that don't have bigs for 2 or 3 matches? I mean, all those things matter, but I'm expecting – I've got the total at final 8 teams. This is the one of all the Sweet 16 of all the time. The total on Sweet 16 teams for the SEC is 4.5 for me.
Okay. What are you taking, over or under?
For the Elite 8.
Are you taking over or under?
I'm taking 5 SEC teams to make the Elite 8.
Okay. You mentioned Auburn. Talk about Chad Baker-Mazzaro. Another incident over the weekend. It's about his 3rd or 4th one. I mean, this guy is a pariah. I mean, he killed him last year in the tournament with his incident in the Yale game. Just how do you deal with that if you're Bruce Pearl? I mean, he's a good player. I mean, he's important, but man, you can't let this guy kill you 2 years in a row with his just stupidity on the court.
Powers, I think it's bigger than that. I think it goes even bigger into what Bruce has allowed and what the fan base applauds.
Right.
To be quite honest.
That's what makes it bad.
And, like, it's been bad. I mean, last year, my old coach, Richard Williams, after Auburn hammered us in the SEC tournament, we were sitting at Hall's Chop House. in Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm always at. And by the way, if you're in Nashville and you catch our podcast, come up to Halls. We'll be there all week.
Halls,
And
yes.
it's unbelievable. But Coach Williams was like, there's just there's something wrong there, to where, like, even when people talk to him, like after these incidents, he ain't hearing nothing, bro. I mean, he's just like completely like lost. I do have a problem with how Bruce has just let it all go. But like about probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, I don't remember what the game was at home when he got the technical. It might have been the Mississippi State game, to where Bruce just stood in front of the official and in between Baker Mazar, and he'd gotten thrown out of the game. He was out of the game, but he's sitting there yapping at the official standing up on the bench, and we're just letting that happen.
Right.
I mean, I don't. Yes, it catches up. Yet now, with all that being said, this was the last time. You just lost to Alabama. Anybody that's grown up in this state, you spend a lot of time in Alabama. That's a deal breaker. Now, did it cost him the game against Alabama? I don't know. His length on the perimeter, when he's out of the game, they ain't the same.
Right.
Length on the perimeter defensively is a huge deal. And dude, Auburn, if you watch Auburn, when Baker Mazar's in the game, Denver Jones is in the game, and it really doesn't matter who the other guard is, they completely have the other team pushed almost half court. And that's length. They're 6'6", 6'7". When that's taken away, but how does it affect how the game is called when these officials are walking into games knowing this guy's got a target on his back? I actually think, Powers, I really think that Auburn will be more settled. I don't think they're going to focus that much on the SEC tournament, but I think when you see Auburn come in this NCAA tournament, I don't think you're going to see all that, because I saw a lot of his teammates getting on him at times, Cardwell in particular, Brim in particular. The narrative's old, man. It's tired. So, like, it's not about you. Move on, play the game, and everybody just focus on basketball instead of how we're going to celebrate or how we're going to start talking trash to the other team.
You listen to Bart Hyche, Press Box Radio, member of the 96 Final 14 Mississippi State. We're talking NCAA tournament, some SEC stuff. Ari, I know you keep an eye on very closely throughout the year. Mid majors. Give me a couple mid majors who are going to make the tournament. A team like Drake, a team like, I had Robert Morris. I know that's a smaller mid major last night. Give me a couple of these mid major teams that might be 10, 11 seeds that got a chance to win a game or two.
Well, to your point, Drake, I think you have to talk about that story. Just a Division II coach coming and bringing his team with him.
4 Division II guys with him.
And taking over a league that has predominantly been known as like one of the toughest mid-major. Now, I do not think that the Missouri Valley is what it's been.
Right.
At the same time, that does. I'm going to tell you 2 teams that I did a lot of the Sun Belt, and I just think the Sun Belt was like, Troy will grind you, Powers. They can get stops, and they got to do. Connor Way is a dude, and he just these last 6 games of the season, Troy shared for the Sun Belt title, beat an Arkansas State team that literally, if Arkansas State, they had rim protection, they could make shots, they had guys that could penetrate. And I thought Hodgson, after they got healthy, would run through the end of that league. They didn't. And Troy they will get a hold of you in the half court defensively and the toughness that Troy plays with. And they've got some shot makers. There's a guy named Thomas Dowd. I did his high school games, about 6'6". And Scott Cross said, I heard this statement the other day, that he would be on the Mount Rushmore of players that's ever played for him. When a coach says that about a guy that's a sophomore, that tells me something. I like Troy, and I like Lipscomb. I like what Lenny Acuff's done. He's a good friend in the press box. They were picked to win that league. Lipscomb can spread you out, and I think you're going to see at times in this tournament the shooting capability of these SEC teams is just a microcosm of fundamentals. Shooting is going to win. Teams that shoot free throws well, that's going to win. Teams that can get half-court stops, that's going to win. Lipscomb and Troy are my 2 teams to keep an eye on mid-major.
Team that's a little bit more of a mid-major, but not playing in a great conference this year. Has had a pretty good year. Memphis. Give me a thought on Memphis. Penny. I saw them in person about 2 weeks ago against USF down here. They got some bigs. They got some guards. Give me a thought or two about Memphis.
They got dudes. I mean, TJ Reeves would love to hear me say this.
Yep.
I think Bill Street is a Sweet 16 possible team.
Yeah.
They can guard, they can protect, but they got guys that can just go get buckets. And it's been about time for Penny to, they had a loss to Arkansas State. They got drilled at home by Mississippi State at their home arena.
Yep.
But since then, getting into conference and a lot of these teams haven't seen you. And Memphis is one of those teams that's more athletic, more explosive, and just has guys that if you get on a roll, they can get scoring bunches and get. I would not be surprised to see Memphis in a Sweet 16 at all.
Two more things. I'll get you out of here. Let's talk. I want a narrative and theme for me. It's going to be interesting. Some blue bloods that are going to be 7-8 seeds on Sunday. Gonzaga, UConn, Kansas, some big name teams. Is Carolina going to squeak their way into the tournament? We're not sure, but just talk about the blue bloods that are going to be in that middle pack 7, 8, 9, 10 seeds. That not going. It's going to be a tough second round matchup for some of these 1 and 2 seeds potentially.
I'll put one team in there that I'm not sold on that'll be a little bit higher seed than that, and maybe even a 4-3 line was Kansas. I'm not
Right.
sold on Kansas.
Yeah.
I don't think their guards are close to what you have to have. I think
Yep.
they're undersized. I think Dickinson is a problem for Kansas when he's guarding ball screens. You get him in ball screen situations. That has been an issue for him at the Big 10, Big 12 level, whatever. So I'm out on Kansas. I don't think North Carolina's all that.
Worthy. I mean,
I mean,
one win
yeah,
all year.
yeah, and I mean, like and what's unfortunate, to be honest, for a lot of these ACC teams, you've always been able to just go in your conference and have quad one games to where you could win and win and win and win, win, win. When all this talent's left your conference and gone to the SEC, those quad wins ain't there. And like, everybody's old, right? To a certain extent. I mean, everybody's got 22, 23-year-old guys on their team now. But I like Arizona.
Okay. Like
And nobody's really talked about them, but like I could see them settling into a 3-4 seed, out in the West probably, and being, very difficult to deal with. I'll tell you another team, and I don't know if you consider a blue, but I think you have to, in honor of Al McGuire. Watch out for Marquette.
Okay.
They got a couple of guys that Cam Jones is still there. He was a part of these last 3 or 4 years. Marquette can turn you over, and their pressure is very underrated. So Marquette, Arizona, North Carolina, I'm not really that sold on.
You believer in Patino and St. John's?
Absolutely. A lot of people don't think they can score well enough. I think that dude is top 3 coach in the game still. I just want him to bring the white suit still out. Bro, when he walked that white suit out, man, that did a little something to me back in the day. I like St. John's, but you mentioned Gonzaga.
Just beat St. Mary's on Tuesday night.
Here's what I believe on this. I don't think Gonzaga. Here's what Gonzaga does well though, in 2 categories. Gonzaga is number 1 in the country at assist turnover ratio, and they're number 3 in the country, Powers, at free throw percentage a game. Those 2 things, always translate to the NCAA tournament. But don't sleep on St. Mary's out of that conference. They're not a blue blood, maybe, to a lot of us. But I think Randy Bennett's the most underrated coach in the country the last 20 years. I think there's a lot of people that would agree with me on that. They will bounce back and come off this. I expect to see St. Mary's in a Sweet 16 and possibly Gonzaga too, just kind of continuing that narrative we've seen from the WCC.
What's most important to Bart Hyche for these bubble teams, the Carolinas, the Texases, the Boise's? What for you is the differentiator in the metrics? Is it quad one wins? Is it, give me a thing or two that's most important that when the committee makes these decisions Saturday night, they're going to lean on this, or what would you lean on?
I think this year, and it goes to a deeper scope of who's going to get in and who's not. I actually want us to change the NCAA tournament. I know you can't believe me saying that, but I want to take the first 4 out of being big teams. And I know the brands would never let, and Grant Leonard was on our show the other day and he said, this could never happen. There's too much money. He's right. What if you had the first 4 as like at-large mid-major teams, or those teams that won their conference that didn't win the conference, and you had like this 8-team tournament over like a 2-week span? I wish it was like that. It's not like that, and I know it's not. What do I need to see? I need to see the quad one wins is not really that big of a thing to me because there's too many of those in the SEC, so that's going to be skewed in how you look at it. I've got to have the teams that are playing the best right now, like we've seen in college football that we talk about all the time on our show. I'm gonna lean toward Do they pass it's cliche, do they pass the eye test right now?
Right.
That's what I've always been about to where we are in basketball now. And this year, literally, this comes down to the SEC is going to get 12 teams in if Oklahoma loses. They're going to get 13 in if Oklahoma wins. Think about that. There's going to be three teams in the
What
SEC that
Oklahoma
don't get
finished
in.
5-13 in the league?
Correct. Yeah. And they're going to get in if they beat
You think
Georgia.
that's right? 5-13. I don't care how good the league is.
That's what
Five
I'm
and
saying.
13
That's what I'm saying, man. And like they started, here's the other thing, Powers. They started 13-0.
out of conference.
They were 13-0.
Right.
They won 5 games. So like, but here's what none of us know. How big is that gap really between the SEC and everybody else that we saw in the early parts of the season?
Right.
And the 83% winning percentage that was off the charts that nobody's ever seen. It's gonna even itself back out. There's no way, in my opinion. Basketball is basketball, man. You got to throw it up. You got to match it up. You're gonna have the other big thing about this tournament, Powers, officials. Just kill the SEC. I watched Mississippi State deal with this with Kip Kissinger twice
Yeah.
against Pitt and Michigan State. Well, maybe not Michigan State, but against Pitt for sure 2 years ago. How are they going to call this game? It hurt Florida last year, hurt Auburn last year. The physicality of how the game's called, all those little things, and you don't know that stuff, man. So, like, my personal opinion is this tournament, I think it's going to even itself out in the early rounds. I think the SEC will lose games in the early rounds, but I think there'll be 4 or 5 SEC teams, maybe 6. They're sitting there with a chance to get to the final 8.
There you go. All right, last thing we'll get you out of here. I think I know you like to talk about coaching carousel. We already got openings Indiana, NC State, Texas, we'll see. Carolina, you never know. Give me a thought, and I'll give you a couple names. I know guys you know. Will Wade, Beard at Ole Miss. Give me some names and some spots that these guys could be good fits at, potentially.
Well, I personally think that Will Wade is Texas. I just if Rodney goes, and I think Rodney's going, they got to win at least 2 games, maybe 3, to get in the tournament and have people lose before in this tournament before you get into the dance. I think Will Wade to
Even
Texas,
with that background, getting caught red-handed on tape.
it doesn't matter. I mean, dude, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Texas loves that narrative, especially when they're trying to hammer A&M and steal their baseball coach, dog. Come on, bro. We talking about oil money, dog. We ain't talking about practice. I think Chris Beard's going to Indiana.
Okay.
I think that has been. I mean, I don't know. They're nutso if they don't go after Chris Beard all day long, every day. He's a big time coach. I actually think you're going to see Ole Miss either do well in they do play Auburn, which I wouldn't count them out against beating Auburn.
No.
I think Ole Miss is going to be a team that like you might see make a run a little bit, maybe get to a Sweet 16 for the first time ever.
Okay.
Bucky McMillan was a name that was out there, but I don't think that he did enough this year to like really move a whole lot. Keep an eye on Richie Riley at South Alabama. There's rumors of Florida International that could be a possible thing. His son is an elite golfer, has nothing to do with basketball, like phenom Tiger Woods kid type stuff.
Right.
And if that's the case, if a more favorable area, you just South Alabama, I think stays. I think Richie stays. But after this, it's Texas, bro. It's Texas. And then NC State, I don't know. I mean, I thought Keats would do better there than he did. But I think you could see NC State maybe go after a high point coach, or NC State be the one that goes after a coach that is just won and is on the up and come. Look, how about a Steve Prom that just got let go at Murray State to NC State, somewhere like that. I think you'll see Prom, Will Wade. I still think Chris Beard is going to, but what if Texas doesn't open up and Beard goes, does Will Wade end up at Ole Miss? You know what I mean? Like, so Will Wade is a hot name. Prom is a hot name. And then
what about a guy like Billy Donovan? Is he ready to get back in the college game, or is he content being 35 and 46, 47 in Chicago every year?
I mean, I could see it, but I would see him taking a year off.
Okay.
Sometimes these guys it's a gauntlet of coaching. Now they love ball. They love it. I mean, how old is Billy now? He's got to be getting close to 50, 55, 60 years old. I would love to see Billy Donovan back in the college game. What if Billy Donovan got back at the college game and like got something in the Big East and him and
Indiana
Patino
or
got to go
something
at
like
it?
that,
Yeah.
potentially, maybe.
Now that great point because late in the game, here or there, I can see I've heard a lot of stuff about Indiana alumni talking about the baggage of Chris Beard. Where's the baggage? There's no baggage. I mean, like literally all the stuff that came out against him wasn't. And I'm a Mississippi State guy,
Right.
so like, but I do think this coaching carousel comes down to a couple of jobs. It comes down to Indiana. It comes down to Texas. Those two, and I think, and then what happens with Chris Beard. But Will Wade's got to win tonight, to get in the tournament. But I still think Will Wade gets a job whether he wins tonight or not.
And you got a guy like Mick Cronin, maybe not very happy with the Big Ten arrangement. Maybe he tries to get back to the Midwest, something like that. Do
I
you,
was going to come open at some point because I think Fran's going to retire.
right?
That may not be this year, but whenever that happens, that's another big domino because I was a really good job.
And Bill Self, there's rumblings about Bill Self maybe retiring,
Yeah.
tired of the NI, and they've struggled a little bit.
I'm I love Bill Self, man, but I don't see the fire. I just don't see it,
Yep.
and I don't and to be quite 100% honest, he ain't got better dudes than everybody else this
No,
year.
no.
And like I love how he's coached. Coach K, all these guys, Coach Calipari, who I'm not a huge fan of, and I think actually Cal has done a phenomenal job this year, what they've been through. But when you ain't got the best guys, it gets a lot less heartening to go out there and coach every day.
Right.
I mean, it just does. And then now the NIL and the way that like all these coaches say the kids are different. The kids are different. Well, I don't know if that's the truth. Like I deal with kids all the time, but like these kids are literally living a life of NFL and NBA players now.
Right.
So where you're looking to level up, whether it's high school, whether it's college, whether it's whatever. I ain't saying I like it, but I'm saying we got to embrace it as long as it's like this.
All right, last thing, I'll get you out of here. Give me a thought on Cooper Flag. I know they got a lot of players at
Stud.
Duke, but tell me, is this guy generational? Is this guy?
Yeah.
Give me a thought or two, and how much damage can he do in this tournament?
Oh, win it. Win the whole thing. Is
Okay.
that good? Now, I do think they need to figure out some better stuff late game because like just giving it to him and letting him go dribble and all that, man, I'm getting him on the wing with like 5 or 6 seconds and just letting him face up, make a jump shot until he doesn't have to go so far downhill. I think Duke is elite defensively.
Yeah.
I think they got a knockdown shooter, number 5. What's his name? Is it Proctor?
Proctor. Yeah.
Proctor. That kid can flat out shoot
Knepel's
it.
pretty good. The Knepel kid's
And
pretty good.
Knepel is a guy that can almost give you a damn triple double, in just the course of a normal night
Versatility. Yep.
and give you 12, 6, and 8 or
Yep.
something.
Yep.
They've got all the pieces. The other thing they got, I like Shire on that sideline. I like what he's done with the transition.
He's tough.
His program
He's a
now.
lot tougher than you think he was.
Bro, he won a national championship with us all thinking he wasn't tough. And just they walked right through that tournament. I love John Shire. I love his staff. But Cooper Flag, to your point, definitely the first overall pick. Definitely a 15-year vet. Just different type of athleticism, tenacity, and ability to just quite honest to guard the basketball. The offense is great. The reason Cooper Flag is going to be the number 1 pick is not his offense. It's because he's a two-way player. And he's that good defensively as well. So I love Cooper Flag, love everything about him. I expect Duke in the Final Four.
Bart Hyche, you're the man. Press Box Radio, Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Bart's on 3 days a week. I happen to be on the other couple days a week. Can't wait till we get to do it again together with Mike Grace and the boys. And keep up the great work. South Alabama analyst, Alabama High School State Championship, Hyche Hoops. He works with kids all throughout the Southeast, does a lot of stuff in the media. So rising star in the media world, brother. Keep it up.
Bro, thank you, man. I love you and I appreciate you and I always enjoy our time together at BHyche22 on Twitter. And I am headed for my pregame festivities at Hall's Chop House, and I'm headed straight to Bridgestone Arena, my friend.
He's in town for the SEC tournament. Enjoy the steak. We'll see you next time, Bart Hyche. Appreciate you finding us on the Powers on Sports podcast. Have a great selection Sunday, and we'll see you next time, Powers on Sports podcast.